Welcome back, everybody, to another session of Office Hours. My name is Adrian. I am the CEO and founder of Groundhogg. Today, last week rather, we got a request from one of our members asking how they can successfully market their product, build their audience, and get more customers without spending money on Facebook or Google Ads, otherwise known as PPC Ads, standing for pay-per-click. So that is what our session today is going to be focused on. I think I put together a pretty sweet deck, and I am going to be explaining the step-by-step process that I went through in order to grow the Groundhogg audience and really kind of just like get the ball rolling and building our customer base and getting more customers. So that's our session for today. At any point during the session, if you have questions about the topic at hand, then we have live chat going on, which is just the comments section for this live video. I have it open on my right here. And once I see a question, I'll be able to repeat it on the call and then provide you an answer in real time. So super cool. You can go ahead and test out the chat just by dropping in and saying hello and letting me know that you're on the call with me. And we also have a Q&A section at the end of the call. So if you have questions that aren't related to the topic, then I suggest that you wait till the open Q&A session for when we really dive into kind of like technique bits, maybe tutorials. But if you have topic-specific questions, then you can go ahead and drop those in at any time. This Office Hours is being recorded and will be posted to Groundhogg Academy after the show is over. We also have all of our previously recorded Office Hours there as well. There's lots of great content for you to consume there. And all of these are also posted to our YouTube channel. So you should go subscribe to that. Link will be available at the end of the session. Just a couple announcements. So Mailhawk is available. I've been seeding Mailhawk for a very, very long time. We launched it a couple weeks ago now, and it's doing some pretty good stuff. You can sign up for Mailhawk by going to Groundhogg and going to your email settings area. Plans start at $14.97 a month, so very, very, very reasonable, up to 40,000 emails a month, I think. And it's really just a great deliverability service. I am one of the co-founders of it, so it's a product that I am personally invested in, and I'm really excited to be able to bring this to our Groundhogg audience to help them send better email. All right, so let's jump into our actual topic for today. I see we have a few people on the call. I see Chris is here from Lifter LMS. Hey, Chris. Samantha, who is actually the asker of this specific question, is here. So I guess that's a good thing. Welcome, Samantha. Eric, Brian, Yisrael. Wow, we have like a full house today, which is super exciting. So I really hope that I'm able to help all of you with this. So let's talk about how to build an audience without spending money on PPC ads, or otherwise known as pay-per-click ads. But before we jump into exactly the steps that I took, I want to talk to you about how I wasted $3,000 in 30 days. It's relevant to the story. So the first thing that you likely hear when you get into the digital marketing game is you got to spend money on Facebook ads or Google ads, or you have to have a budget and you have to do the targeted research marketing and all of that stuff. And so when we first launched Groundhogg, that's exactly what I did. I set aside a budget for Facebook ads, and I created a really terrible ad, and it looked like this. So this is my really bad ad that I spent $3,000 on. And for my effort, I got 0 conversions. You'd think you'd at least get 1, but no, I actually made 0 money. I got 0 ROI on my spend on Facebook ads. And there's a few reasons why this happened. Number one, it was a cost-driven benefit, which means my only real differentiating factor in the ad was that it costed less than maybe other software as a service solutions. We had an unclear CTA. So you can see at the bottom there, it says no monthly fees ever. That's not a call to action. That's just something that's an attribute of our product. We had 0 social proof at the time. Now, this is something that I think a lot of businesses miss out on, is if you're running an ad campaign, it really helps if you already have customers to back up the claims that you make in your ad. Because if you don't have any backup, then your ad kind of just falls flat. And since we were a new company, we had no social proof. So that didn't help. And we also spend a lot of money advertising in poor economic areas. I used to come from the Infusionsoft community, and they used to do a lot of business in Brazil. So I'm like, it's a good idea. We should market our product in Brazil. The problem with that is there's a lot of people there, and the economic situation varies greatly between people who would actually make sense purchasing your product, and sometimes you're just absolutely wasting your money on people who would never purchase your product. So there's just a huge number of factors for why this ad campaign didn't work. And I'm not the world's foremost leading Facebook ads expert, which is probably another reason why this failed drastically. And I feel like this is many businesses' first experience with Facebook ads. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you the strategies that I employed that I was able to organically grow our Groundhogg audience without spending any more money on PPC, so that you can avoid my $3,000 mistake. And it starts off by really defining your ideal customer. This is something that I thought I knew ahead of embarking on this journey. I thought I knew who my ideal customers, but it turns out I actually had to go through an additional refinement process in order to really narrow it down. And I'm going to share with you our ideal customer. It may not fit your description, but it's really working for us. And I'm going to share with you why. And then I'm going to share with you why it's important to know your ideal customer while organically growing your audience. So the first thing you need to do when creating your ideal customer profile is be incredibly specific. Most people, when they hear you need to come up with your customer avatar or your ideal customer, they think, all right, well, age, I don't know, in between 18 and 50, they're male, and they really like cars. And that's basically kind of like the depth to which you go. It's an extremely shallow customer profile. And the reason we do that and create these shallow profiles is we don't want to exclude people from our audience. We think that if we get too specific, we're actually going to end up excluding people that we might actually be able to help and serve. That's not the case. It's actually the more specific you are, you actually end up casting a wider net than if you leave it really generic. The reason that is because if you're selling to everybody, you're selling to nobody. So if you try to fit too many different roles for different people, you actually end up losing the attractive factor that you might have for a very specific audience. So when defining your ideal customer profile, you have to get incredibly specific to the point of creating an alternate persona for yourself. So start out with how old are they? Some of the generic questions. Are they male, female, other? Where do they live? Where do they work? Where do they drink? If they drink, are they employees? Are they managers? Do they or their kids play sports if they have kids? How busy are they? Do they own a business? Do they spend time on social media? What shows do they watch? Just get super granular and specific about these people's personalities, and that will help you to start creating this persona. And I'll share with you mine. So my persona is Digital Marketer Dave, and I actually came up with this persona while going to a program called Growth Stacking Summit, but from a guy named Dan Martell, which I thought was a very actually informative area. And I think the best thing that I got to take away was this customer profile. So our ideal customer is Digital Marketer Dave. He lives in the suburbs with his family. He's in between 30 and 50 years old, plays golf on weekends. He owns a small digital marketing agency focused on helping e-commerce stores specifically, so a specific niche vertical. He has 4 employees and they're subcontracted out. He works remotely specifically. His agency manages in between 5 to 10 clients at a time. Yearly revenue is between $200,000 and $400,000 a year. Was a former musician, and he sponsors the local youth hockey game. So obviously some of these are totally unrelated to my product, like the youth hockey game thing, if he was a musician, if he plays golf on weekends, totally things unrelated to my business. However, it's important to really understand where these people are, what they hang out, how they like to spend their time, so you can actually connect with your ideal customer on more than the superficial business level. You can connect with them on a personal level. So that is really, really important. You need to dive deep into the intricacies of this person, of digital marketer Dave. So what I want you to do is, at the end of this call, rewind back to this part in the presentation. Go ahead and answer these questions. Maybe come up with some questions of your own and get really granular on your specific ideal customer. That's step one. Now, I mentioned that a lot of people don't do this. A lot of businesses don't do this because they're worried that getting so specific will actually exclude other people from being able to use your product. But that's just not the case. This is our ideal customer. All of our marketing, all of our branding, everything is focused on this person. Yet this person probably only represents 33% of our actual customer base. And the reason that is this person shares attributes with a bunch of other people, a bunch of other types of customers. So those shared attributes pull in other types of customers. If they're solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, they're course creators, other agencies not focused on e-commerce, anything. And this is what we call the halo effect, something else that I learned from Dan Martell. So 66% of our customer base is someone who is not a digital marketer, Dave, at all. They might be learning management Chris is on the call, so I'm just going to use your name. They might be learning management Chris or something, and they run a learning management company, or they learn some sort of course company. People are brought in by the halo effect because they have similar attributes to digital marketing, but they don't exactly fit the profile. So by actually getting super specific, you're actually casting a wider net, which is really, really, really cool. So keep that in mind. Don't be afraid to get super granular. Once we understand our customer better, our ideal customer, by getting super granular, we can start to ask the really important question. Where does our ideal customer hang out? Where do they spend their time? What do they spend it doing? The reason this is important is because, well, actually, I'm going to get to why it's important in a minute. But let's talk about digital marketer Dave for a second. Where does he spend his time? Well, he spends a lot of his time, since he's a WordPress-focused agency in e-commerce, he spends a lot of his time in agency-focused Facebook groups, learning how to deal with clients and asking for advice. He spends it in support groups for WooCommerce and other plugins, maybe Shopify, because, well, he runs an e-commerce-focused agency. He wants help and advice, and he wants to learn the strategies that other people are deploying. He's listening to WordPress and e-commerce-focused podcasts. He's going to WordCamps and maybe something like Traffic and Conversion, which is the Digital Marketer Conference. And, of course, he's listening to Russell Brunson, because everybody in the e-commerce industry listens to Russell Brunson. So we can start to understand where this person spends their time and where they're hanging out. Now, I want to ask you a question, and I'm going to give you maybe 10 seconds to put together and formulate an answer. What business is always in front of their ideal customer? And no matter what time of day, no matter where they are physically, which business is always in front of their ideal customer? I'm going to give you around 10 seconds to think about it. And maybe go ahead and just comment it if you can think of the kind of business that I'm thinking about, which I'm going to share in a moment. All right, so that's 10 seconds. So what business is always in front of their ideal customer? And that is the food truck. The food truck is always in front of hungry people. If it's a festival, if it's a conference, if it's outside of school, I must have spent hundreds, if not $1,000 or more dollars at food trucks at university. I honestly probably single-handedly funded one of them. But they go to where their customers are. They meet their customers so that they don't force their customers to come to them. In the early days of running a small business, especially if you're trying to build an audience up from scratch, you have to act like a food truck. So you actually have to go to where your ideal customers are so that you can help them with their issues where they are. Like food trucks travel to hungry people. They don't make hungry people travel to the food truck. You have to be the food truck. Bring your knowledge to the customer and don't wait for them to come to you. If you've ever heard the saying, build it and they will come, that's the silliest phrase ever and not a reflection of reality, at least not anymore. Especially if you're an information or a technology company, you have to go to where your customer is in order to let them know that your knowledge can actually help them. You have to go to the customer. I see Brian Ward is getting into the conversation. Food truck attracts customers to them, but only if the food truck is present. And that's the thing. The food truck actually has to be present in the physical location in order for the customer to be able to actually buy food from them. If the food truck isn't there, the customer doesn't know that the food truck even exists. I'm going to ask you a question. If you're extremely hungry, right, are you going to wait the 40 minutes to leave a festival, go to a restaurant, sit down with the extra 30 minutes for the server and all of that stuff? Or are you going to go to the nearest food truck and buy a deep fried pickle dog at the C&E or something? That's what I would do. Maybe not everybody, but that's what I'm certainly sure a majority of people would do. So you have to get in front of digital marketer Dave. So, and that means if you're trying to get in front of your ideal customer, you have to be where they are. So in this case, we know that digital marketer Dave spends a lot of time in agency-focused WordPress groups, WooCommerce, listening to WordPress podcasts, going to conferences. We know all of these things where he goes and where he spends his time, which means we need to have a presence there. So we have to go to WordCamps, go to conferences. We have to try to get speaking spots where digital marketer Dave is. We have to join all of the WordPress groups and be able to be part of the conversation. We have to get on the podcast that he listens to. We have to be present in where he's spending his time, because if we're not present, he's not actually going to know we even exist. So now that we are the food truck, we are in where the customer is, how do we actually turn that ideal customer into an actual customer? How do we turn our presence of being in front of digital marketer Dave into revenue, into subscribing to your course or buying your product or purchasing a consultation? There are two schools of thought on that, and the first one is always be closing. If you've ever seen the movie Glengarry Glen Ross, then there's that great famous clip from Alec Baldwin where he's just losing it on the sales team because they're not closing deals. There's certainly a time and a place for always be closing, but in a lot of contexts, especially in Facebook groups or at conferences, if you're adopting that approach, it comes across as pushy, unhelpful, and short-sighted. So I'm not really a fan of the always be closing, vacuum salesy, car salesy kind of approach. I prefer the approach always be helping, and this is something that I learned actually from my dad, who is actually the ideal person. My dad is actually a representative of digital marketer Dave, to the 80% of the way there. But I learned from him always be helping. It makes the customer feel special. It solves a problem for the customer. It employs something called the law of reciprocity, which I'll dive into in a minute, and it allows you to be in service of, all super important. So let's talk about the law of reciprocity for a second. Okay, I'm not going to go to that slide just yet. So say that I am in a Facebook group and someone asks a question, hey, listen, I'm really having a tough time with my CRM and my marketing automation. It's not working. And all these things. I want to obviously get them onto Groundhogg because I want them to switch from whatever else they're using. Now, there's two approaches. I could just go in and say, you should absolutely switch to Groundhogg. We have a deal right now, yada, 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 and go in for the always be closing method. Now, that's probably not going to work because what this person wants is they just want a solution to the immediate problem of their funnel not working. What might be a little bit more effective is to go in and maybe show them a solution to their problem, even if it's for a software or a product or whatever that is directly competitive to yours. But you can start to build a relationship and maybe go down this approach. Hey, I see that your thing is not working. You might want to try and make this switch. We at Groundhogg actually do this a lot using this funnel template, and you can actually see this video on exactly how we do that. And maybe what you can do is you can emulate the funnel that we have in Groundhogg and rebuild it in your solution or in your CRM. Now, what this does is it does two things. Number one, it helps them solve a problem where they're at in their Facebook group with the CRM that they're currently using, but it also starts to seed the fact that, yes, I belong to another CRM company, and a lot of people are doing exactly what they're doing in our own product. And anybody else who's looking at that conversation will see that we successfully helped the person. They might go watch the video or read the article or whatever it is that we sent them, and they say, hey, look, I could really use that, and this guy is really helpful. Maybe this is something that I could use in my business for myself. Rather than just going in and saying, you should absolutely switch to Groundhogg and going down that sort of like that pushy route. The law of reciprocity will eventually kick in. Did I explain that? So if I didn't, law of reciprocity, if you help somebody, that will eventually get kicked back to tenfold. It's a universal law, and it's something that we've really been able to use effectively at Groundhogg. The crazy thing about helping people and adopting that always be helping, that help first approach rather than that sell first approach, is that if you help, others will intrinsically just want to help you help more people. If you help, people will just want to help you help more people for free, without even you asking for it. And this has exemplified itself a couple times. Number one, in the beginning, I was doing a lot of podcasts. That was part of my marketing strategy. And I did a podcast with a guy named Jonathan Denwood from WP Tonic. And I just got on the podcast and I'm like, hey, listen, I'm from Groundhogg. We see a lot of agencies struggle with a lot of these software as a service applications out there. We wanted to help these agencies by providing them with a few tools that would just make their lives easier. And after that call, Jonathan Denwood sent me an email and says, hey man, that was a really great show. Would you like to be part of our panel? Would you like to be my co-host? And that gave me a platform that I could actually use his audience to reach more people and to help more people on a grander scale. And I'm actually still his co-host and still show up regularly on his Friday panel show. If you're not familiar with that, it's on Fridays at 11:30 EST. So he wanted to help me help more people because I was able to help his audience with their problems, since he works a lot with other agencies and LMS-focused people. And then the second time this happened is because I was on that panel, a guy named Chris Badgett, who I think is on the call with us today, was also on the panel, and we really hit it off, and he asked me to show up on his private mastermind call to talk to his audience about Groundhogg and the features that can really benefit their LMS people, because a lot of his customers struggle with marketing automation and email marketing, and I had a solution that might be able to help them. So both times came from an area of being in service of, and when that happened, those guys, for absolutely no, there was no buy-in, there was no affiliate link, there was no nothing. They just said, hey, listen, I can see that you're helping people. Can you come help my people? And that's just one of the great things about helping people, is other people just want to jump in and help you help more people. So how do we turn helping people into sales? It's all great to help people, but how do we actually turn that into money, which we need to feed our family, pay our rent, pay our bills, pay for software, pay for Groundhogg? How do we turn that into sales? So the law of reciprocity takes care of a lot of this. It's a universal law. Give and thou shalt receive. Help enough people get what they want, you can have what you want. It's really a question of if you put in the work, the universe will reward you, and I truly believe that to the utmost degree. There are a few things you can do, though, in order to help the law of reciprocity, give on your return. So you can help the universe a bit. Number one, use your product as part of the solution to the potential customer's problem. I gave the example of the person who's having a problem with their CRM. We gave them the solution, but we used Groundhogg as part of the solution. That way, they both get a solution to the problem, but we also seed our actual product. That way, either in the future, if they think of switching, they think, oh, hey, that guy helped me once. Maybe Groundhogg would be a good solution. And other people who see that conversation because it's on Facebook or whatever kind of like public channel, they're going to be able to see that, and they're going to be able to identify the product in our solution as well. You can also help yourself by not giving away literally everything you know. You should certainly give enough away to be helpful, but you don't need to give away like the whole barn, as it were. And you can save a little bit for your paid program or whatever that is. So if you're helping somebody, you can give them an immediate solution to their problem, but you might also want to do something like, if you're interested in maybe accomplishing this additional step, you can check out this YouTube video, which explains a little bit. The YouTube video might be a pre-roll for a course that you're offering or something, maybe a little bit of a teaser. That's a very excellent strategy because it helps the person, but it also seeds your product. You can point to solutions that are on your blog or YouTube channel. So if someone's asking a specific question, you don't need to type out the whole question to them. You can direct them to a YouTube video or to maybe a blog post. That way you're sending traffic to where the magic happens, and you can embed an ad for your product and create that sort of curiosity. And the most important one, I think, at least in this list, is you should be accessible. So when you're being part of the conversation and helping people, be accessible to replies and to feedback and to maybe opposing viewpoints, and just be generally a nice guy about it and be gracious. Not everybody is going to love your advice or your help or the way that you're helping people. That's kind of just the nature of it. So be accessible, be kind, be generous, and be courteous. Don't get offended if anybody's like coming down on you. It's happened to me a few times. I remember when I started doing this and I was doing my best to help people and using Groundhogg as part of the solution to their problems, I remember a guy coming on and it's like, WordPress is not the place for a CRM. This will never work. It absolutely sucks. I remember having that one, and I think I replied, you could be right. Just be courteous, be generous. Don't let that kind of negative feedback weigh down on you. As long as people are getting results with your product and service, then it is a valid product and service. Most importantly, actively seek out opportunities to help people. If you're spending every day on Facebook or whatever, yes, people are going to start asking questions eventually, but you can also be proactive about seeking out opportunities to help people. I remember in my early days, I just applied to as many podcasts as I possibly could so that I could help other people's audiences with their marketing automation and email marketing issues. And that's how I kind of went out and helped a whole lot of people at once. Being part of the conversation in like Facebook groups or in maybe like Reddit or Instagram or wherever your audience hangs out on social, or maybe if you're just going to conferences, helping those people one-on-one makes a lot of sense because it builds credibility and you can get a little bit deeper and emotionally connect. But it's just as useful being able to cast a wider net on a larger group of people at the same time. I did it by doing podcasts, but you could just easily as do it by doing speaking spots or webinars or co-promotions with other industry leaders, whatever it is that you need to do to reach a large amount of people. But always has to be from the helping perspective, even if your topic is like completely unrelated to your program. Mine was not. My topic when I was doing kind of like this podcast tour was how to use digital marketing effectively in 2019. That was my topic, and it worked quite well because not only did it promote our product, which is our marketing automation software, but the information was useful to people who were not using Groundhogg at the same time. So it wasn't just if you use Groundhogg only, this will be applicable. This is if you're using digital marketing in any way, shape, or form, this will be useful. But if you don't have a marketing automation tool at the moment, you could use Groundhogg in order to do it really, really, really easily. So that's the method and approach that we took, and I think it worked really, really quite well. Why don't more people do this? And why do you see the Shopify guys or the dropshipping guys on your YouTube ad with a rented Lamborghini in the back? Why are these people kind of like always be closing, throw a bunch of money at ads, and they're not focused on helping people? And the reason, I think, is just because it's harder. It takes time, effort, and patience to see the results of helping people helping people. It's not just going to materialize overnight. You can't, and this is a saying that my dad says, you can't go out into your garden, plant flowers, water them, come out the next day, and expect there to be flowers. It just doesn't work like that. The law of reciprocity and the other universal laws that apply here take time to mature and create the results that you actually want to see. But when the law of reciprocity kicks in, I can almost guarantee that the payout will be bigger than the return on any amount of ad spend. You create such a more deeper emotional connection with the people that you help than the people who click your ad. It's really quite powerful how a helping first approach can outweigh a selling first approach. So that's why I think a lot of people just don't go down this road, because it took maybe, I think our really kind of like till we were comfortable, the time until we were comfortable with the number of customers coming in and profitability and all that stuff, I think it was like a 6 to 8 month wait of just going into Facebook groups, helping people, doing the podcast circuit. It took 6 to 8 months, but it paid off, and it's still paying off. And I can't be more happy with the results and putting in that time. If you don't have 6 to 8 months, then that might be an issue. And maybe you can subsidize that with some ad spend, but I promise that the helping first approach is really, really where it's at. So if you're asking yourself, where do I start? Where do I start? How do I, help people? Because it's a daunting, 6 to 8 months in that long spin up time. It can be intimidating. So these are the steps that I would take to adopt a helping first approach in order to kickstart your audience growth. Number one, block off an hour of your day to set aside for exclusively helping people with their issues, food truck style. So just help those people one-on-one, solve their issues. You can use my strategy for helping the law of reciprocity kick in by seeding your products, etc. You should join 5 groups or clubs where your ideal customer hangs out and participate in the activities and the conversations. So if your main audience is like soccer moms, then you should probably be going to soccer games. If your main audience is yoga studio participants, you should probably be going to a yoga studio. If your target audience is retail fashion shops, you should probably be going to runways. I don't know where fashion retail people hang out, but you should be going to where they're hanging out. Buy a booth, be part of the conversation, and help those people with their conversations for at least an hour a day. After a few weeks, you'll have already accumulated 27 hours. Yeah, 7 times 3 is 21. So you'd already accumulated 21 hours of one-on-one experience helping people with their issues. And you will really understand even more of the issues that your target and your ideal customer faces. And you can leverage that knowledge into creating your own podcast topic, like I did when I was doing my podcast circuit, or maybe a speaking circuit in your case. And you can reach out to industry leaders, conferences, to collaborate with them and reach their audience. So you can help people on a much larger scale, cast a wider net. So you can stop doing the one-on-one helping and start doing the one-on-many helping. And that is when it really starts to kick in, when the law of reciprocity kicks in, and you start to see your help transform into revenue. All right, that brings us to the end of our presentation. I'm going to give it a few minutes. That was a lot of content in a really short amount of time. So if there are any questions about this methodology of a helping first approach instead of a selling first approach, and using the law of reciprocity to essentially generate our audience for us, are there any questions about this methodology? Go ahead and post those in the chat. I'm going to give it a couple minutes for questions until we go into our open Q&A session where we can talk about anything Groundhogg related or marketing automation related. So I'm not seeing any questions come in. Don't be shy. There's no such thing as a stupid or silly question. If you have, even if you think your question is silly, I implore you to comment it so that I can help solve that problem for you. You can actually, office hours is an example of how I help people for literally no money. I don't get paid to do office hours, and being part of office hours is absolutely free. Our Facebook group is not pay to play, and our office hours is not pay to play. So this is an example of how I decide to help people for 1 hour every Tuesday, and that's how I do it. And the law of reciprocity kicks in for everybody who's on this call. This call is actually one of our best selling tools, even though we don't make an offer in it. So that's just an example of how you can use helping people in order to create revenue. Samantha Winslow asks, do you ever link back to Groundhogg when you help or do you just put the answer? Absolutely, I do. I mean, again, I was using office hours as an example. There are like 20 different links at the end of this call to resources where we actually have sales, and we actually have offers for people to invest in our products. So let's go to here. So when I was talking about the law of reciprocity and we're helping people, we can help the law of reciprocity help us by embedding our products into the solution. So when you're answering someone's question, so in your case, you help people with barrel competitions for like horse races. I know nothing about your niche, Samantha, so apologies if I have that wrong. But let's say you're answering a question on a horse group on Facebook. I don't know. Let's say they have a question that's like, I don't understand how to perfectly execute this barrel race or whatever. Then what you might want to do is record a YouTube video that answers their question. And then when you're answering that question, it's like, hey, let's say the person asking the question is Clara. So, hey, Clara, I understand that you have this question. I actually get this question a lot from other members of our tribe. We recorded this YouTube video to specifically answer this question. Here's a link to that YouTube video. And in your YouTube video, you can have an offer at the end that explains what your program is about and how they can answer more questions that they might have not even otherwise known that they had. That is a great example. A person who does this really effectively is a guy named Spencer Foreman, who you may know from Launch Flows. And for every question, he never answers a question in text. He records a video every single time that someone has a question, and then he comments the link to the video, and at the end of the video, there's usually an offer, and he just does it really, really effectively. So he helps, and then he has an offer, which is non-obligatory to, get the knowledge and the benefit of his solution. That is how you can embed your offer and your product while helping people at the same time. And again, if you have someone in a Facebook group who has a question, you can point to a blog post that you have that solves that person's problem. And your blog post can have an offer and links to other areas of your site where they can get more information. There's so many ways to answer that question while also promoting yourself at the same time. But as long as you're coming from a helping first approach, that means that you don't gate your solution with a pay-to-play. You just give them the answer. Then what you're creating is the law of reciprocity, and that is eventually going to turn into some kind of revenue. Hopefully that answers your question for you. But absolutely, yes, you can point to your links to your site, YouTube videos, YouTube channel, whatever, as long as you're answering the question that they have first. We have an additional question from Paul. Paul asks, any ideas how to find an opportunity to help as a podcast co-host? When I was doing my podcast circuit, I literally just I Googled WordPress podcasts, and I just went through every single one. And I just messaged them and emailed them and found whatever way that I could contact them in order to schedule an interview. I probably only got about a 30% reply rate, which materialized in maybe 5 or 6 interviews, but that was enough to really kind of like get it going. And one of those turned into a co-host opportunity. My recommendation is, if you are in an industry where podcasting is kind of like a big thing and a lot of your target audience listens to podcasts, then you're going to have to just message as many people as you can, just like you're doing your speaker circuit. And when you're getting, you just wave your memoriam or whatever, just message as many as you can. You're going to get a 30% reply rate. And of those 30%, you're going to get a few interviews. And that's just where it starts. And then you can use the interviews that you did and link those when you're applying for additional podcasts so they can listen to it. And you have some social proof to back that you're actually an industry expert, etc. So you're just going to have to start somewhere. And where I started, Googled and just messaged link after link after link after link after link. And that's the way that I did it. And I think it worked actually out pretty well. So hopefully that answers your question. I don't know if that's going to exactly turn into a co-host opportunity. But after you do enough, you actually might have enough juice to go ahead and start your own podcast and find a co-host. Or if you really end up clicking with someone, you can actually just broach the subject and say, hey, listen, I'm looking for a co-host opportunity. I thought we had a really great time during our interview. Is that something that you might be interested in? It's going to be a yes or no answer. And maybe you can just, if you have clicked with another one, you can just keep doing that over and over and over again as well. So maybe that is a way to kind of go down that road. Jesse Brown asks, and this would be why you guys have gotten so much exposure so quickly. Yes. Our exposure is not like super huge. There are certainly others that have been able to grow a lot faster than we have, but our growth is certainly nothing to be ashamed of, I think. We really went down the helping first approach, and I think that is going to pay off and is currently paying off in spades. And I think that this approach is a lot more customer friendly for your ideal customer than it would be to, I'm just formulating my thought here. It's a lot more customer friendly than the ABC always be closing approach, I think, and just kind of like spamming people with ads and poor customer service and stuff. When you come from a helping first approach, the reward takes longer to pay off, but when it does pay off, it pays off more than you would have going kind of like the ad first approach, I think. Zane says, we're really glad you're here, Adrian. I learn something every week. I use the recordings often. Well, I'm glad that you're learning something and that you find my helping helpful. It would be really sad if I spent all this time and nobody learned anything. So I appreciate the fact that you're learning something, Zane. And that's kind of like what I'm talking about. When you create this reusable content and you're helping people every week, people notice. And when part of helping people, when you help people, other people want to help you help more people. By helping people, you create champions, and those people become affiliates, and those people recommend your products and services to other people. And you end up creating like this spider web of people who want to champion your products and your support. And I mean, I don't even like have to always go into conversations anymore to answer people's questions. I see in other groups like Jack Arturo's group for WP Fusion, I see people asking questions there, and Spencer or Jack jump in and say, hey, listen, Groundhogg sounds like it might be the solution that you're looking for. And you end up creating these champions, because when you help people, other people just want to help you help more people. And that's the network that you create when you adopt that helping first approach. Eventually, you will get to a point where you no longer need to be in the conversation, and you have your champions and your network of people rooting for you because you've created an audience like I have in office hours, and that's where you help people now. Of course, you should always be a part of the conversation, because being accessible is one of the ways that you help the universe and deploy the law of reciprocity for you. So as long as you're accessible, and as long as you're kind, as long as you adopt that helping first approach, you end up creating just this network that pays itself off in spades for all of the work and the time and the patience that you put into creating that network. Samantha says, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I appreciate how easy Groundhogg is to use, and I appreciate your support teams and great helping attitude. Thank you, Samantha. I appreciate that. And I hope that this answered your question from last week, which was, how do I market my product without spending any money on PPC? This is exactly the steps that we took in order to build our current audience and our revenue and our product. And I think it worked pretty well, and I'm pretty satisfied with the results so far. And I know that if anyone on the call deploys this strategy, you, in 3 to 6 months, you will start to see the return on your time and investment into helping people pay off in your subscriber list growing, in your revenue growing, in speaking and podcast opportunities, in meetings with industry experts, and just being able to continue to help more people. Okay. We're at 10:47. There seems to be, as Samantha pointed out, there's a pretty big delay in between when words leave my mouth and when they reach your end of the screen. So I'm going to give it 30 to 40 seconds of just like dead silence to wait for a few questions to come in. Just keep in mind, we are currently in our open Q&A period. So even if you don't have questions specifically related to our topic today, and you just have like a general Groundhogg question or a support question, now would be a great time to pop that into the chat, and I will be able to answer it live right here on the call. There are no silly questions on office hours. So if you think your question might be silly, then I want you to know that your question is, of course, absolutely valid. And I would love nothing more than to be able to help you with your issue. And if your question is super complex, then you should also be able to ask it. I have taken extremely complex questions on this call before, and I will do my best to answer it appropriately. So we are in open Q&A. Now is a great time to ask your questions. Someone wants to know the difference between SendWP and Mailhawk. I promised I would address it, so I will. So for those of you who do not know, I am a partner in a new service called Mailhawk. Mailhawk is an email delivery service like SendWP, SendGrid, Elastic Email, AWS. And we are specifically focused on helping people with their email deliverability. We do that by specifically deploying our delivery service, specifically for like password reset notifications, Groundhogg emails, Lifter LMS notifications, WooCommerce payment receipts, etc. And we're specifically focused on WordPress type email rather than something like SendGrid that is focused on all email everywhere. So that is one of the ways that we kind of differentiate ourselves. But the big way that we differentiate ourselves from something like SendWP specifically, which we used to be kind of like the default email option that we promoted because we were an affiliate of them. Over the time we got, there were a few issues that we discovered with the service that our customers had a lot of trouble with. Number one was domain validation. So when you sent an email through SendWP, a lot of times it would show up as like from FeedBlitz, which is their email deliverability partner. So we don't do that. We actually have our own delivery service that we set up. We set up the MTA and like all of the connections with all of the different providers and ESPs and all of that stuff. So we have our own email delivery service, and we provide DKIM SPF validation. So it doesn't do like the whole feedblitz.com thing, and it show when it reaches the customer's inbox, it show that it was actually sent from your domain rather than from SendWP. So that's the way that we're different. We provide all of the sending statistics, like the bounce reporting and the send reporting, the delivery reporting. We also provide an integration specifically with Groundhogg. So if emails bounce or are marked as spam by the customer, then that's reported back to Groundhogg and will actually change the customer's opt-in status to reflect that change in their email deliverability. So all of those ways are ways that Mailhawk is specifically different than SendWP. Domain validation, specifically targeting WordPress email, and we also have the feedback for bounce and spam complaint, to update the contact's opt-in status. Oh, and the reporting, the send, bounce, delivery reporting. Super important stuff. So hopefully that explains a little bit about how Mailhawk differs from something like SendWP and something maybe like SendGrid or AWS. Zane Winberg has a question. Zane's question is, as soon as I get back to my Q&A slide here, what do you use to help create use cases so you can better visualize how it will be a good solution for your client? I have to admit, I'm terrible at creating use cases, Zane, but I'll do my best to answer your question. The best use case is a real one, first off. So if you have a customer using your product surface, or maybe if you're an agency and what you did was you implemented them, the best use case is a real one. I wouldn't spend any time trying to create like demo or fake use cases, because those are too ideal to be realistic in most cases, and usually like customers can just see like right through that. So if you're creating a use case, the best one is a real one. Chris at Lifter LMS does a great job of this, and he actually used me as a use case. So I'll show you an example. It's Lifter LMS, and I have to go find his use cases page. Okay. Examples. I think it's under examples. So I'm going to link this to you, by the way, Zane. So this is Lifter LMS's case studies area, and I'm going to try and find mine. There it is. So this is a case study that he did on Groundhogg, because we use Lifter LMS for Groundhogg Academy. And I think this is a really, really, really good template to kind of base your case studies on. Every single one of these case studies is a real company, and those work way, 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 way better than building fake use cases. And I can't stress enough that you should do them based on real clients. Obviously, if you've only ever worked with one client, that might be a little bit difficult, but that's kind of like the grind. When you take a helping first approach, you don't see the results and the rewards for a while. And that's kind of just the grind that you got to put in it. You have to be patient. So while you're taking on new clients and they ask for case studies, you just have to say, we don't have a case study that matches your specific example, but we were able to work with these companies, which aren't exactly the same, but these are the results that we were able to get for them. Here's how they would be similar to your specific project. And that authenticity and those real world results will be able to push them over the edge, as it were, or at least give you the credibility and authority that you would need in order to actually bring them on as a customer. If you're doing demo case studies, I would just avoid it altogether. It's not going to be worth the time and effort to build all of those websites and all the integrations and all that stuff. It'd just be easier to do it based on real world examples of work that you've done in the past. Here is the case study that Chris did specifically for us, Zane. Go check that out, and hopefully that will give you some examples of how to build an effective case study in the future based on previous examples. Paul, who's also on the call, I know he does, when people ask for case studies, what he does is he gets permission from his clients to use their website as a demo opportunity. So when he's bringing on a new client and they ask for a demo of what he's going to do, he actually logs into one of his previous customers' sites and walks them through all of the work that they did and how it works and all of the like the nuts and bolts, obviously without giving everything away so they can't just do it themselves. But he gets just permission for the customer to log into WordPress and kind of just like go through it step by step. And that's how he does his case studies, is he just gets on a call with the customer and walks them through a previous customer's website. He can show them live reporting statistics and all of that cool stuff so they can really see it working in real time. So that's a really effective strategy as well if you're looking for ways to showcase your work. You can choose a client, you can get their permission to show other potential clients what you've done for them. If they say yes, great. If they say no, move on to the next client. That's also another way that you can maybe go down that road, Zane. Hopefully that's helpful for you. We're coming up at the 1 hour mark. It's almost 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. We have 4 more minutes for questions. So if you want to have your question answered, now is definitely the time to do that. So I'm going to give it 30 seconds because of the delay. So if there's dead space, don't worry. It's just me waiting for the question to come in. And if not, we'll be able to start wrapping up this session of Office Hours. Okay, so it doesn't look like we have any more questions coming in for today's session. So we're going to start wrapping it up. If you need additional help and you're looking for other resources to help you move the needle forward in your business, we have lots of courses. We have lots of previously recorded office hours at your disposal at academy.groundhogg.io. That is our Academy site where all of our learning resources are posted. If you're more of the person who likes to sit back, you like to think of things from a high-level perspective, and you want someone else to do the implementation, we have certified partners for that. And you can go to our certified partner directory to find a partner that best suits your needs. If you have a colleague or know a business that might benefit from using Groundhogg, then you can sign up to become an affiliate, earn 10% on any referrals if they end up buying some one of our packages using your link. Super awesome. And that 10%, by the way, I should mention, is recurring yearly. If you are not, you should be following us on all of our social media platforms. Groundhogg WP on both Facebook and Twitter. We also have a YouTube channel where this office hours will be posted. So you can subscribe to us on YouTube. We also recently set up our Instagram. Not a whole lot going on there at the moment, but it's also Instagram. Groundhogg WP is the username there. I should add that to this slide eventually. If you have not yet, I would love it if you could show me that the law of reciprocity exists and go and leave us a review. Reviews allow us to help more customers and allows us to get more developers, which means more features that you want and love. We collect reviews on our WordPress repository listing. You can go to wordpress.org/plugins/groundhog and leave a review there, and I would be extremely grateful. If you have more questions and you did not get the opportunity to ask your question on this office hours, there are lots of ways that you can get an answer. First off, we will continue to monitor the comments for this session, so you can continue to comment. You can post in the Facebook group, the open user group. That's what the Facebook group is for. You are welcome to message our live chat. You can reach out to us at Groundhogg WP on Twitter, or you could just shoot us an email, info@groundhogg.io. I hope that you enjoyed the session. I hope that you learned something and found it extremely informative. I'm really grateful for the great turnout that we had today, and hopefully we'll have just as great of a turnout next week, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, for our next session of Office Hours. Thank you, everybody, and have an excellent day.